everyone, it's Chelsea with Sevana Wren Studio, and we are now live for the first Messy Yoga Mom workshop. And this month we've been focusing a lot on messy emotions and different ways that we can work through and process emotions, but more just focusing a lot on being able to or being more comfortable with sitting with our emotions and expressing our emotions in a variety of ways. And what I wanted to do today for this workshop was just to, not only kind of go over what we have been talking about in the on my Facebook page, Sevana Wren Studio, but also in my Sevana Wren Kula, and go back over it a little bit, talk a little bit more in depth about it, and how yoga and meditation can be great tools to help you feel more secure in experiencing your emotions, finding the internal depth and root of those emotions, and then work toward finally expressing them in not only a meaningful way, but also a constructive way for you. So before we begin, I want to take, just a little bit of time. I know that we have been discussing cycles as part of the Red Moon Women's Circle that I also host, and I just wanted to bring up, right now we are currently finishing up with a Virgo waning moon, and so we are having, a little bit of that mutable energy, but also the earth energy that comes along with that Virgo moon. And so it's a really great time for looking at your routines, looking at your health habits, seeing what would be good to release that may not be serving you right now or just in general, and start working toward that new moon in a couple of weeks. Now, the Messy Yoga Mom isn't really tied all that much to the new moon or the full moon, but I did want to mention that we just had the full moon in Leo on the 28th, and we just went into Mercury's retrograde, and so, there's a lot of potent energy just kind of floating around right now. We're moving toward a whole bunch of planets being clustered together in Aquarius. Right now we have 3, give or take, and we have a couple more following close up behind at the end tail of Capricorn. And so there's just a lot of energy right now directed at Aquarius, which is all about looking toward the greater community, looking toward humanitarian efforts, thinking outside the box, breaking down paradigms, and breaking down foundations that no longer serve us. And so it's a really great time that, since we're moving through the waning moon, to really tap into that release energy. Another way to put it is that we're just in the time that we have a little bit of momentum and a little bit of pause in our own space right now to just have and be able to take a moment to exhale. You know, we've had so much energy generating constant strife and um, intense energies that we're just kind of at a period right now that we can just take a deep exhalation and a deep sigh. And so I just wanted to bring that up so that, you know, if that resonates with you, you know, feel free to follow those energies to wherever they lead you. Before we head into the program, I would like to take a couple of moments for us to center on our breath, get into our bodies, make sure that we are present and in the moment. And so I hope you'll join me with a very short breathing meditation to just draw us into the present moment. So I invite you to either close your eyes or soften your gaze, find a comfortable seated position, and with your hands on your hips, thighs is what I meant to say, with your hands on your thighs, palms pointed to the ground, I want you to focus on your breath, feeling your breath flowing in through your nose, down through your throat, into your chest, filling your belly, and then feeling it as it returns to the space around you. The purpose of this meditation is to feel the breath, noticing it in our body, how it feels in our body, and how it moves and energizes us and centers us. We are not attaching any judgment or expectations on our breath, just sitting with it as it naturally flows through our body, sustaining our life essence. Noticing if your breath is shallow and rapid or deep and slow, or if it's somewhere in between. Your experience with your breath is valid because it is your breath and your experience. And if you'd like, you can bring your hands to your heart, feeling the paired motion between your breath and your heart. As they move together in concert. To produce the seat of life and of your existence. And shifting your attention and your focus to the points on your body where you come in contact with the floor, whether that be your feet or your hips, noticing the solid foundation beneath you, that earthy element holding you up, supporting you. Feel yourself connecting with that earth energy, exchanging energies, grounding yourself, releasing any nervous energy, anxiety, butterflies, or any other feelings that you may be experiencing in this moment. And then when you're ready, you can release your focus on where you connect to the ground, returning it to your breath, focusing on your breath once more, going back into that flow, that natural in and out motion that you don't have to think about, that just is. And when you hear the bell, begin to return your awareness to your surroundings by either opening your eyes or refocusing your gaze to the room around you. Releasing the meditation as you do. And take as much time as you need to reorientate yourself to where you are in this space and in your body as we prepare for the workshop. All right. So if you are still in the middle of the meditation, feel free to take as much time as you would like to work through and to finish your meditation practice. Otherwise, we'll begin the workshop on messy emotions for Messy Yoga Mom. So if you've been a part of my Sevana Wren, which is my Facebook group, or you've been following what's been going on my business page, you've seen a number of posts over the last 4 or so weeks that have been dealing with the different dimensions of emotions that we as human beings experience. on a daily basis, if not more often than that. Maybe it's every hour. And we looked at it from, first our emotions and how we interact with ourselves and others, and where the root of emotions, whether they are positive or a little bit more messy, where those roots can stem from. And then we worked our way to look at interpersonal relationships, as well as emotions that may be brought up within you from other people, namely the emotions around parenthood and the emotions that children can experience, and how we can work through those emotions together as partners and as mentors. So it's one of those things that I, as a yogi, always advocate that things start with you. So you can't really have too much introspection on, say, what other people are doing, because you have no way of knowing what the other person is truly going through, what they're truly feeling, and what is going on with them. What we can do is that we can look within ourselves, and we can look at our emotions, our actions, our thoughts, and our behaviors, and where all of that comes from. One of the big things that was posted in the group was this discussion of the behavior chain of emotions. So, for instance, there is usually a trigger or a stimuli in your environment that you are experiencing, whether it's within yourself or with someone else, that triggers an emotional response. And these emotions rise up most of the time unconsciously. We don't have conscious control or even conscious awareness of the emotions or the triggers that we are experiencing. And when you are less prepared for this emotional response, because you are distracted or you're doing other things and you're not really in the moment actively thinking about what you're experiencing, and if that happens, that is absolutely the normal way of life that most of us live in. It takes a lot of energy to be living in that ultra awareness, mindfulness in everyday life. But I digress. And when you have that emotional response usually within under a second or a couple seconds initiates a string of thoughts that are associated with that emotion. And when those thoughts enter our space, they then activate a drive for action. And that action will lead to some sort of behavior that may or may not have consequences of some sort, whether they're positive consequences or not so positive, negative consequences. And then those consequences will loop it around back to the stimuli, the trigger, emotional response, thoughts, behavior, action, etc. And we can go around in an infinite loop. When when I first started working on being an advocate for mental health, as well as going through my meditation and my yoga training, I realized that more often than not, I could vividly experience this cycle through what I would call anxiety spirals, where I would interact with some sort of external stimulus, and that would trigger anxiety, frustration, anger, maybe shame, guilt, all these different kinds of messy emotions, and those would instantly trigger my brain to start ruminating in a circle, just over and over and over, thinking again and again and again, and over-analyzing that stimulus that I had just experienced. And so then I would get stuck in this perpetual loop until at some point I was either so revved up that I took immediate action that one could classify as impulsive or more hasty, detrimental. While I was overthinking about the stimulus, I was underthinking about the consequences of whatever action I was taking. And so I could see that most clearly in my own life. And it was through work, my training and personal education on mental health, working on my own mental health with a therapist, that it started to become a little bit easier to see the cycle when it was happening and break the cycle down into smaller parts that were easily digestible for myself, so that I could then backtrack through the thoughts to the emotion that I was feeling, and then further down into what the root of that emotion could be. So, for instance, one of my really big, messy emotions is shame. I tend to instantly internalize stimulus from friends, from family, from Facebook, whatever. I immediately blame myself and I feel shame, and then all these other emotions come bubbling to the surface. But it's still that shame that is leading the way. And so when I started working to figure out where the root of that shame was coming from, I realized that for decades I had been groomed or groomed is good enough a word. I had been groomed and prepared to always assume that if something went wrong, it was my fault because I wasn't perfect, or I didn't do it well enough. And because I didn't do it well enough, I then felt that it's not good enough, therefore I'm not good enough. And that root of the shame was, I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy enough. And so it was this internalizing the feelings of shame anytime that I made a mistake. And so you can see how this process can be both beneficial as well as difficult. So, say that you are working through issues tied to large traumatic or chronic trauma, and you're working through those emotions, but you have to work through the PTSI, PTSD feelings as well at the exact same time, and so you can have crossover between the emotions that you're trying to work through and the emotions that are brought up by your PTSI, PTSD experiences. And so it's a very helpful system, but it's also something that should be used as a gradual process rather than a jumping off the cliff and seeing if you are a cliff diver that can swim in a turbulent ocean. It's it's more like going to the beach and sticking your toe into the gentle surf and saying, "Hey, that wasn't so bad. Let's put my whole right foot in. That's pretty good. How about my whole left foot?" And slowly wading out on the beach until you can swim safely and feel safe swimming in that ocean. The most of the messy emotions that we discussed over the last month are things that have to do with what we would see as negative emotions. Now, because I don't believe that there are negative emotions, that's a determination that society puts on emotions, just like everything else, a judgment. I prefer to view emotions as being more messy, where you feel maybe less in control, or you feel less security, less safety, that could be a little bit more distressing than, say, happiness, contentment, joy, peace, those types of things that we think of as being more positive aspects of emotions. The messy emotions, it's one of those things that we all have them. No one gets away living their life without messy emotions. We feel them every day, maybe every hour, maybe every minute, and that's okay. It is completely valid and okay to not feel great, to feel sadness, to feel grief, to feel anger, to feel frustrated, to feel anxiety and nervousness, because our emotions are messengers from our body, from our true self, that deepest part of your soul, to our ego and our active consciousness, saying, "Hey, you need to pay attention right now. Something is going on, and I need to draw your attention to it." And so, yeah, being angry is messy, but it can be really important to look at, why am I angry? What am I trying to show myself about this current situation? And so it's one of those things that when I'm in my uh, yoga classes or my embodiment yoga classes that I teach, I really like to explore the idea of how we can first sense and bring awareness to our emotions, because a lot of us have been programmed over our lifetimes to squish down emotions. We've been taught by our parents, by our family, by society that emotions are not okay. It's not okay to cry in public. It's not okay to feel anger. It's not okay to be depressed. And, I'm here to tell you that that is complete and utter crap. It is okay to feel your emotions, even if they are scary. So in the classes, I focus on, let's bring our emotions out into the open in a safe, constructive, secure way. Then we take time to sit with our emotions and feel what types of sensations, feelings, images, thoughts come up while we are sitting with that particular emotion. Whether it's anger, depression, anxiety, happiness, joy, excitement. It doesn't matter what type of emotion it is. It is important to be able to sit with your emotion without saying, I need a distraction. I need to dissociate from this emotion. I am too uncomfortable to feel this. I need to numb it and escape away from it. Now, of course, there's always times that that is a legitimate course of action, especially if you are not physically in a safe place, or you are not in a mentally safe place to be able to sit with yourself and your emotions for an extended period. But like anything else, I tend to view it as being more of a building up tolerance issue. Being able to sit with the emotion and myself for a couple seconds and then saying, I'm good, that was enough. Next time, maybe I try a minute. After that, maybe 5 minutes. Maybe in a couple of years, it's 60 minutes. But, it's not about the length of time. It's about what you feel during that time. It's about that experience. It's not about that quantitative, I sat for an hour during meditation and had no thoughts whatsoever. That's completely unrealistic. It's about how can you find a meaningful experience with the time that you are able to experience it at that moment. It's always coming back to that being able to be present in the moment, being able to feel the now. And once you start working through that feel it, sit with it and feel it phase, then you can work on the third part of my classes, which is about the expressing it. And so the expression of your emotions can take many forms. Maybe it is talking it out with yourself or someone else. Maybe it is creating art. Or maybe you engage in embodied yoga or some other type of embodiment somatic practice that allows you to feel and engage with the emotion in your body to work to express it. In my previous classes, I've done a variety of different techniques. We've done journaling, as well as fire release ritual ceremonies where you write down what you're upset about and you visualize working through it, letting go, and then burning the piece of paper as a symbolic form of release. I host a couple of times a year a somatic experiencing workshop where we move in different ways to stir up emotions or traumas that you are wanting to work through so that they can be released through the art of dance and movement. Singing is a great tool. And then, of course, my favorite of all is the Embodied Yoga, which I posted a couple of times, not only on my page, but in my Kula group. And one of the ways that I tend to use embodied yoga is that I will work to create a specific embodied pose, a pose that I associate with a particular emotion. And then I find the opposite pose that resonates with me to help me work through those emotions so that I can talk through it with myself to see what is layered underneath that initial emotion. So, for instance, I might say that I am extremely frustrated that I haven't been able to get the house cleaned the way that I wanted to because my kids have been strewing their toys over every single room in the house, and it feels like I'm cleaning up after tornadoes. And it's keeping me from doing whatever work that is on my mind. And so I might come up to my bedroom or my yoga room and sit or stand in a pose that reminds me of being frustrated. So a lot of times when I think of frustration, I think of I have had it up to here with this crap. I've had it up to here. Why are you doing this? And so I will stand or sit with the I've had it up to here idea. And so my chest will be lifted, it'll be constricted and tight, and I'll have my hands engaged like I'm so frustrated that I'm vibrating. And I will be in that pose for however long I need to sit with that emotion and feel it in my awareness. And then I'll say, all right, what would be the opposite pose of I've had it up to here? Well, in my mind, what resonates for me is if I'm up to here, I need to bring the level down. And so I will work to slowly move my hands little by little down my face, down my shoulders, down my chest, down my torso, all the way to my hips and my thighs. Maybe I extend it all the way to the floor, and visualizing it as I'm releasing that frustration down through me, through the earth, and lowering my level. And so, you can do this type of technique with a variety of different types of emotions, frustration just being one of them. I think a week or so ago I did a small little mini live stream where I focused on anger, and we were focused on anger here, moving to empowerment. And so it's a great way to not only tap into what resonates with you and your personal visualization style, but it's also a safe, constructive way to, one, focus on what you're feeling, feel what you're feeling, but through that embodiment, and then working to flip the script. And you can do that in your own time frame. And so that's one of the things I really like about embodied yoga, because it gives us a way to experience our emotions, especially our messy emotions, in a way that can feel safer than, saying them out loud. Now, I do advocate that you work toward expressing your emotions verbally, whether it's just with yourself or with other people, as a way to transmute the emotional energy out, through your heart, pushing it up to your throat, and then extending it out through the conjunction of your other chakras. But that is more of a advanced chakra system philosophy that we'll get to at some point on down the road when we talk a little bit more about chakras and how each one has a different set of principles that can help move through different parts of your body and experiences. The last thing that I want to talk about before, I take, questions or comments is that probably one of the harder aspects of emotions has to do with expressing emotions and receiving emotions from other people. And so that interpersonal relationship of emotions. If you are a parent, you probably experience this on a hourly basis. I know I do. As a mom of 2 sets of twins, 2 of which are 11 and going through puberty, I can tell you that we have a very ruckus, emotional household. Not because of their, gender or anything, but just their ages and who they are as people. They are not the type of individuals to repress their emotions as much as other children. If they feel angry, they're going to tell you. And if they feel happy, they're going to tell you. So it's one of those things that as a yogi and a mom, I am navigating this tightrope walk of emotions on a daily basis. And it's this swinging back and forth between the emotions that my children feel and how they express those emotions, and the emotions I feel in response to their emotions, and how I am displaying or communicating my emotions. And one of the really important posts that I had mentioned was the cycle of yelling, or the cycle of anger, depending on which version you happen to look up on Google. And the idea behind it is that when your child expresses an emotion, for instance, being angry, a lot of times us as parents immediately reflect that anger back through yelling or harsh punishment, and that causes more emotions to come up, and we get stuck in this loop of yelling and uh, and punishment that, may be more focused on the corporal punishment kind of side, rather than saying, like, more gentle parenting aspects of it. And so it's really about not only what is going on with the child now, and I say child just because the example that I'm going through right now has to do with parenthood, but you can easily apply these ideas to other people that you are in relationship with, whether it is platonic, friendship, or a romantic. But because all relationships are interpersonal and they all follow a similar kind of pattern when it comes to emotions. And so, for instance, with the child-parent dynamic, a lot of times what happens is that we as parents are so focused on the external emotion that our child and behavior that our child is displaying, that we don't have time to think about what's really going on behind the scenes. I know I posted the infographic that's the Iceberg of Anger, where what we see above the surface is anger or some other form of messy emotion, but what's beneath the surface, the larger portion of that iceberg, are a variety of different things, such as unmet needs or desires, disconnection, feeling alone, having issues with perfectionism, whatever those underlying roots might be, that the child just doesn't have the vocabulary to articulate in a way that we can understand. And so what we as parents will normally focus on is, my child is angry, they are having a meltdown or having a tantrum, I need to stop them, and we need to put them in a timeout, and they need to be punished, let's ground them from this and take away this privilege, and it then starts that cycle all over again. And the idea behind gentle parenting is that you regulate yourself while you're interacting with your child, regulating your emotions, your responses, adding a pause between what they're doing and how you're reacting, as a way to help them with their emotional regulation, helping them find a way to tap into that parasympathetic nervous system that allows them to de-escalate from that emotion and that behavior. Whether that is a time in where they sit with you and they work on connection with you and you talk through the situation, or it's about finding safety and having you, leave the situation for a second so that you can cool down before re-emerging and re-engaging in that connection and conversation. That's really what gentle parenting or positive parenting is about. It's about inserting that little pause in your interactions with other people to give you the space to see if you can regulate yourself before you engage and react. And it can take a lot of practice, and it doesn't always work, no matter how much studying and practice I get as a mindful, gentle parent. There are still times that I walk down into the living room and my children have absolutely destroyed the room with toys and food and tons of clothes and bedding and pillows, and the chairs are upturned, and I am unable to regulate myself enough to not be a yeller when in my reaction. And that's going to happen, and it sucks, and that's not what I want to do or how I want to parent, but it happens, and it's going to happen because no one can always be on the ball, being a constant, mindful, aware parent every moment, every second of every day. So if you're a parent like me who experiences that same reaction and impulse, it's, give yourself some compassion, some grace, and say, hey, I I tried, I'll try again next time. Yeah, I'm still a work in progress. I'm still learning and I'm still growing. And you can, of course, apply that to any relationship, whether it be with your spouse, your significant other, your friends, your family, your parents, the crazy driver that cuts you off on the highway. It's being able to flip that switch from sympathetic nervous system, that fight, flight, fawn, freeze, stress response, to parasympathetic nervous system, where you are collected, you are pausing, you're resting, you are digesting the information coming towards you. It takes practice. And I say that as not only a parent, but also a yogi. It's you can always get, practice makes progress. You can always get a little bit better, but it's never going to be about doing it perfectly every single time. So we got about 5 or so minutes left. Is there anything that you would like me to cover, or um, cover in a little bit more detail, and just see if there's anything that you would just really like to hear a little bit more about? Feel free to, type it up in the comments, and we can, discuss these topics uh, for the next 4 or 5 minutes before we close out our workshop today. Well, thank you so much, Dana. Dana commented that the workshop was great. I'm happy that you found something useful in it. As always, like we say in our other groups, take what works for you and leave the rest of the door. This is my experience and the knowledge and wisdom that I wanted to share with all of you, um, to see if it would be helpful on your journey and your path through life, whether you're a parent or not. I'm saying I'd say if you come up with a question or something later, feel free to, you know, post it on the Kula group if you're a part of that, or on my Facebook page, Sevana Wren Kula, if you would like to get it to me. Um, Otherwise, I'm always available through social media to to help out any way that I can. All right. Well, we got about 2 minutes left, so why don't we take those last 2 minutes to refocus on our breath, finding a comfortable seated position, hands either on your thighs or comfortably folded in your lap. I invite you to either close your eyes or soften your gaze as we turn our attention inward to our breath. Feeling the sensations of our breath coming in through our nose, filling our chest and our belly, and returning to the space around us. Noticing any changes in our breath, in its pace or its rhythm. And then when you're ready, I invite you to refocus your gaze or open your eyes, returning to the space around you. Maybe moving your head side to side, maybe moving your shoulders and your arms and your feet, just kind of bringing a little bit more energy to your body as you return to the room. Say, I want to thank you all for joining me for this first Messy Yoga Mom workshop on messy emotions. Next week, Sunday on February 7th, I will have my second Red Moon Women's Circle, which will be on honoring our cycles. The next Messy Yoga Mom workshop will be at the end of February, and it will be on the hamster wheel of parenthood and life. Feel free to contact me on social media through my business page, Sevana Wren Studio. Consider joining my private Facebook group, Sevana Wren Kula. And if you really enjoy my content, please consider becoming part of my Patreon community. My Patreon members get all of my workshops, classes, worksheets, and other private content for free with their subscription. And you can find me under Sevana Wren Studio on Patreon. I wish you the best for the rest of your Sunday afternoon and evening. And as always, the light and the shadow within me recognizes and honors the light and the shadows within you. Thank you so much for joining me.